Good evening and welcome to this virtual meeting of the Annual General Meeting. It's 8 p.m. on Tuesday the 4th of May 2021. My name is Councillor Linda Eaton. I am the Mayor and the Chair of this meeting, and my fellow Councillor, Councillor Lily Kaufman, is the Deputy Mayor and Vice Chair. In accordance with the regulations made under Section 78 of the Coronavirus Act 2020, this remote meeting is being live streamed and recorded. The audio-visual recording will also be made available on the Council's website and the YouTube channel shortly after the meeting. All meeting participants are reminded to speak slowly and clearly in the direction of their device's microphone at all times. A reminder that mobile phones and other electronic devices should be turned off or put on silent mode. And those participating in the meeting should refrain from taking telephone calls. For the purpose of recording of attendance, I can confirm that the following members are present and participating in this remote meeting. Councillor Rosemary Adams, Councillor Naveed Alam, Councillor Lee Bentley, Councillor Bill Bolter, Leader of the Council, Councillor John Boyce, Councillor Linda Broadley, Councillor Frank Broadley, Councillor David Carter, Councillor Latif Dar, myself, Councillor Linda Eaton, Councillor Dean Gamble, the Deputy Leader of the Opposition, Councillor Gratoria, Councillor Samir Hack, Leader of the Opposition, Councillor Priti Joshi, Councillor Lily Kaufman, Councillor Jeffrey Kaufman, Councillor Amandeep Kaur, Councillor Claire Kozlowski, Councillor Helen Lloydell, Councillor David Lloydell, Councillor Kevin Lloydell, Councillor Sharon Morris, Councillor Richard Morris, and Councillor Ian Ridley. Tonight, we also have the following aldermen in attendance: Councillor Leslie Thornton and Councillor Michael Griffiths. We also have the following officers in attendance: Mrs. Anne Court, the Chief Executive and Head of Paid Services; Mr. David Gill, the Head of Law and Democracy and the Monitoring Officer; Mr. Samuel Ball, Assistant Solicitor, who is acting as a Democratic Services Officer; and Miss Emily Byrne, Democratic Services Officer. Finally, we also have the following invited guests in attendance: Claire Campbell, spokesperson for the Leicestershire Children's Hospital, and Rabbi Mark Solomon. For the purposes of the regulations, I can confirm that before this remote meeting went live, all participants confirmed that they can see and or hear all other participants. This meeting will be conducted in accordance with the Council's adopted remote meeting procedure rules, a summary of which is attached to tonight's agenda for reference. May I also politely remind all participants that they must not act in a disorderly or disruptive manner or otherwise interfere with the Council's proper conduct of his business. Thank you. Agenda item 2, apologies for absence.
We've received apologies from Councillor Michael Charlesworth and Councillor Robert Eaton.
Thank you. Agenda item 3, declarations of interest. I have a declaration of interest on this matter. I have sat with one of the applicants for the independent panel on the Leicester bench, that is Mr. Laurie Faulkner. Councillor Kevin Lloydell.
Thank you, Worship. Exactly the same. I've sat on the bench with one of the independent members, which is Laurie Faulkner. Thank you.
Thank you. Agenda item 4, the Mayor's announcements. There are no Mayor's announcements. Agenda item 5, my address for this evening. I will keep this short. I would just like to say that this mayoral year has been extremely different from any other that we've ever done. There have been no events, no fundraising, and really it's been very quiet. I would just like to thank all councillors for their support during these 2 years that I've been the mayor. And I would also like to put on record my thanks to all the officers who've been helping me, and without whose help I could not have done these remote meetings. So I'd just like to thank you all. Agenda item 7, election of the mayor. Can I now have nominations for the election of the... Sorry.
Your Worship, with all due respect, you've missed item 6.
So I have.
Look,
Look, you see, I'm so quick to get Lily elected. Agenda item 6.
Thank you, Your Worship. Normally, when I do the appreciation, I talk about how much money people have raised. And whilst Councillor Linda Eaton has raised several £1,000s, that frankly pales into insignificance in my mind to the superb effort she has made in moving up and being the mayor for 2 consecutive years. It has been, without doubt, the most unusual circumstances this and any other councillors faced. Linda has done a superb job in just holding that post and doing whatever has been required in terms of meetings. You know, we've gone from 2 years ago, a nice mayor making followed by a nice buffet and an enjoyable evening, to we've moved this forward a week, which is a good job. Otherwise next week I've no idea how that would work. So overall, Linda has done an amazing job at allowing and helping this council to continue. And I would also echo Linda's kind words to the officers. Nobody expected a pandemic. Nobody expected the change and the difficulties it would create. And I think it's only appropriate to put on record at this point the thanks of all members to the officers, not only for stepping up in terms of the officer-member relationship, but actually the amazing work we've done outside with the public. A lot of it is quite quiet. It's not big. It's a phone call to a lady in Oadby who hasn't got any family. It's also making the grants and making the money available to businesses at a quick and most efficient rate. But it's those little things as well that I come back to are the most important. And I without the officers stepping up to the plate, I simply do not know how we would have done such a good job in the last 2 years. So once again, can I thank Linda, and can I also put on record our thanks to the officer corps. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Boyce. Now agenda item 7, election of the mayor. I shall now ask for nominations for the office of mayor for the ensuing year. Councillor Samir Haq, I understand you're proposing this.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. Thank you. It is with great pleasure that I wish to nominate Councillor Lily Kaufman for the position of the mayor. I have known Councillor Lily Kaufman for many years now and have had the privilege of working with her closely as her co-councillor since 2017. I have always been impressed with her tireless work ethics and her willingness to do whatever it takes to deal with the residents' queries and come up with a solution which is feasible and acceptable both by the residents and the council. As a colleague, Lily has been extremely helpful and has always been generous with her time and expertise. She is kind, caring, and compassionate, qualities that make her an excellent councillor. But above all, most remarkably, she has managed to keep Councillor Jeffrey Kaufman in check for the last 35 years. And that does deserve a Nobel Prize. I hope, Councillor Kaufman, you have been practicing addressing her appropriately, as well as carrying her bag and being her chauffeur. I have no doubt that Councillor Lily Kaufman will be an excellent ambassador for the borough Therefore, Your Worship, it is an honour for me to nominate Councillor Lily Kaufman for the position of the Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hack. Councillor Dean Gamble, I understand you're going to be the seconder on this.
Yes, thank you very much. Councillor Lily Kaufman was born in Reading just after the war, although I do have the dates, but it's not correct to actually give the real dates. The parents who had fled Europe from the Nazis. Lily is the long-suffering wife of Councillor Geoffrey Kaufman. Correction, the long-suffering third wife of Councillor Geoffrey Kaufman. Lily has 4 sons and 2 granddaughters. Lily, although now retired, was a trained legal secretary and with Geoffrey ran a successful secretarial agency for over 20 years. Lily was first elected to represent St Peter's Ward in Oadby in 2011. In 2015, she lost St Peter's Ward by just 12 votes. But it wasn't long before she was back on the council, this time representing Uplands Ward in Oadby in a by-election she won in October 2017 and successfully held the ward with Councillor Samir Hack in the council elections in 2019 with an increased majority. Lily is kind-hearted and loves animals, especially her little dog, Poppy. On the cooking front, Lily is famous for producing vast quantities of what is known as Jewish penicillin, i.e. chicken soup. I'm sure COVID wouldn't have had a chance if we'd all had a bowl of this famous soup. It gives me great pleasure in seconding Lily Kaufman as Mayor of Oadby, Wigton and South Wigton. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gamble. It has been proposed by Councillor Samir Hack and seconded by Councillor Dean Gamble that Councillor Lily Kaufman shall be elected to the office of Mayor for the ensuing year. If there are any objections, please raise your hands. I see no I see no hands raised. By general affirmation, the proposal has been carried. I will now call upon the newly elected Mayor to read and sign the Declaration of Acceptance.
Thank you, Councillor Eaton. I will now read the Declaration of Acceptance of Offer. I, Lily Kaufman, having been elected to the office of Mayor of the Oadby and Wigston Borough Council, declare that I take that office upon myself and will duly and faithfully fulfil the duties of it according to the best of my judgment and ability. I undertake to observe the code as to the conduct which is expected of members of the Oadby and Wigston Borough Council, dated the 4th of May, 2021, and I will now sign it. There's now going to be a bit of clanking going on because I'm now going to put my chain on. So you have to excuse me for a moment. I've now got this beautiful chain on, which I'm very, very proud of. Right, good evening, everybody. It gives me great pleasure to speak to you now as Mayor of Oadby and Wigston. Just for the record, I believe I'm the first mayor to take my office up remotely and digitally. So I hope our electricity in Oadby is of good quality. But seriously, I would like to extend a warm welcome to the aldermen, who I can actually see on screen here, which is absolutely wonderful. I think some past mayors have maybe zoomed in. My colleagues, members, officers, who have got a very difficult job at the moment because they're trying to sort out an election. My chaplain, Rabbi Mark Solomon, my dear family and my dear friends. I'm also very proud to have my husband, Geoffrey, as my consort. Thank you for your kind words, Councillor Hack and Councillor Gamble. I don't recognise myself the way you worded it, but thank you. I know that Councillor Gamble had to give up some working hours to second me, so it's very appreciated. Thank you to all the other members who voted for me. I said this before, actually. I think I wrote this speech about 50 times until I got it right, but excuse me if I repeat myself. I would like to thank the officers again, who have been working under really difficult circumstances. It's the first time they've ever done a remote AGM, mayor making, and you've all done it beautifully, and thank you very much, and thank you for your guidance. It's been brilliant. I would also like to thank our former mayor, Councillor Linda Eaton, and her husband, Councillor Rob Eaton, for doing the extra year and for holding the fort. Again, very appreciated. I'm really honoured to be mayor, and I promise that I will do my utmost to promote our lovely borough so that people feel that they'd like to come and visit. I also hope to promote our borough in such a way that businesses will be interested in opening in the area. I promise you that I will do my best to promote our borough of Oby and Wigston. The other important job I have to do is promote my charity, which this year is Leicester Children's Hospital. I chose this charity because unfortunately there may come a time that some families in Leicestershire may need their services. And the way things are in the NHS, they need every bit of support they can get. At this point, I would like to introduce Claire Campbell, who is Head of Fundraising for Leicester Hospital's charity, to speak further on my chosen charity. If you'd like to unmute, Claire, and the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Mayor Kaufman. Many congratulations and thank you very much for the invitation to speak to you this evening. I'm really honoured to be here. This is a first for me, so I'm delighted to tell you a bit more about the charity. So Leicester Hospitals Charity is the official charity of the University Hospitals Leicester Trust, our NHS Trust. And our job, our mission, if you like, our passion, is to enhance all three of our hospitals, Glenfield, Royal Infirmary and the General. We're a team of 16,000 staff and 1 million patients pass through our hospitals every year. So the influence we have on the community is immense. Last year as a charity, and we're a fairly small charity, but with really big ambition, we raised £3.5 million, which you can see tangibly invested in our hospitals. And that is only due to the generous and passionate support of our help of our supporters and that Leicester spirit, which really carries us through. We get our income from different income streams. We get it from local businesses. We fundraise through events, which obviously this year, as you appreciate, has changed hugely. We have some generous gifts from major donors who support us. We have one-off donations from individual donors who may give us £5, which is really welcome, or regular donations. And obviously we get gifts in wills, legacy gifts from people in their wills. But really importantly, and I come from a background of community fundraising, we get significant support from communities, and that's where local charities can make such a massive difference. So this mayoral adoption is really important and is a real example of a community who really cares. As a hospital charity, we set out with a number of appeals, and one really ambitious appeal that we launched 2 years ago was our Children's Hospital appeal. And we set out to raise £7.5 million, which was a huge target. We want to build a dedicated children's hospital in Leicester. We are the only region in the UK, and really have to stop and think about that. We are the only region in the UK without a dedicated children's hospital, and that has to change. You know, we are a population who deserves better, and we can do that with support. In just 2 weeks' time, we opened phase 1 of the new children's hospital, and that is bringing the cardiac unit from Glenfield Hospital over to Leicester Royal. And we treat around 850 children a year in our cardiac unit. And we need our children to be in one place. We shouldn't have our children or our families going between the 3 different sites. It compromises their care, and we need them in one place. So having this the cardiac unit move from Glenfield to the Royal is a huge step forward. And I think it's really symbolic that the heart unit moves first. It literally is the heart of the new Children's Hospital. And we will have a new Children's Hospital in Leicester by around 2025. So I've been there today. I'm normally based at Leicester General, but I've been at the Royal Infirmary today, and I've been seeing some of the finishing touches, and it's really emotional to think of the lives that are going to be transformed by that new space. Talking to the paediatricians and seeing the new space, which has a space theme. It's a beautiful, beautiful part of the hospital, really restful colours, beautiful little touches, like in the anaesthetic room, there's a live sky with animated aquarium for children to look at whilst they're being anaesthetised. All these touches can only happen with charitable support. And the equipment that you see is phenomenal. The new machine in the catheter lab, the X-ray machine, was £1 million invested that's come from fundraising. £30,000 just for one cardiac monitor, £6,000 for an electrocardiograph and blood pressure monitor, down to £100 for a thermometer. All of that's come from fundraising. And our appeal was called Do Them Proud. And I really feel that we have. And I really feel that we owe it to Leicester's children and the families to fulfil the ambition that we set out with the appeal and make a difference. I feel really proud and privileged to have the Mayor's support. I know she feels genuinely really passionate about our cause. And I just know it's going to be a really successful time in office. And we'll be working very much in partnership with her to make this a really fantastic success that the whole of the community of Oadby and Wigston can share in. And thank you for listening this evening.
Thank you very much, Claire. And I promise you, we'll try and raise lots of money for you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, I would like to introduce my chaplain, Rabbi Mark Solomon, who is the rabbi for Leicester Progressive Jewish Congregation and also for a community in Edinburgh called Sukkot Shalom. And Jeffrey and I also regard him as a friend. If you'd like to unmute Rabbi Mark.
I have done. Thank you, Lily.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's an honor to be here this evening with you on screen and in spirit, although I'm currently sitting in London where I live. For the last 6 years, I think it is, nearly 7, I've been visiting Leicester monthly or more than monthly in my role as rabbi for the community. And in that time, I've come to know and admire and appreciate Lily and Jeffrey as key members of our Jewish community and of our synagogue in Leicester. And I've also been involved in some events in Oadby and Wigston, especially interfaith events, which Jeffrey and Lily together have supported so enthusiastically over many years. Lily, I know that this event has been put off a year, and we were to have met up last year in person, but that didn't happen. And I also share the admiration for Councillor Eaton for having held the fort for an extra year during these very strange times. And perhaps, Lily, you're extra lucky that although you're starting off in this way in lockdown, you'll have the opportunity to lead Oadby and Wigston Borough and the Council as we cautiously emerge, we hope, from lockdown. And of course, the Leicester area has been in lockdown longer and more deeply than anywhere else in the UK. So it'll be an extra special privilege for you, Lily, and a responsibility to lead that emergence as we hope, very much hope, back into normal life and meeting one another again in person. Lily and Jeffrey have raised their family in our community, seen their sons go through their bar mitzvahs at the synagogue, and recently had the great joy of their son Victor celebrating his marriage in the community as well. And we're delighted and honoured in the Jewish community to share Lily and Jeffrey with you, with the council and the people of Oadby and Wigston, because we believe very much that we're not here only to look inwards to our own community, but look outwards as well to the wider world, to the whole of society, and do our bit. One of the core values of our community, which Geoffrey and Lily exemplify, is what we call in Hebrew tikkun olam, which means mending the world and working for the improvement of society, whether it's through care for the environment, through acts of kindness and care in the community, and above all through social justice. And Lily, I know you're someone who has a great passion for social justice and for ensuring that everyone in the community, especially those who are disadvantaged, who are poor, have an opportunity to take part fully and equally in society and be supported and looked after. The Jewish community and our synagogue, Lily, will give you every support in your year as mayor. And I know, and I'm very confident in saying this, that we will also be proud and happy to support your chosen charity, about which we've just heard such inspiring words in our fundraising efforts during this coming year. Our tradition says that those who occupy themselves in faithfulness with the needs of the community are worthy of every blessing and every support. I know that it's perhaps with a bit of reluctance, Lily, that you've taken on this role of mayor, which Geoffrey has occupied before you more than once. But it's not just a matter of your turn has come, it's a matter of you being the right person, someone who has proved yourself through your work with the council and the community as the right person to occupy this role of leadership. So just as the Lord Chancellor was traditionally dragged reluctantly to the woolsack in the House of Lords, so we're symbolically dragging you reluctantly to take up this position and to wear your chain of office and all the responsibility that symbolizes throughout the coming year. You're a modest person, not someone who naturally occupies the limelight, but I know that you will do so with distinction and with grace, Lily. And I'm confident with all of us that you'll do a wonderful job. All our very best wishes and congratulations. And as we Jews say, Mazel Tov on this lovely event of your mayor making.
Thank you very much, Rabbi Mark, for your lovely words, your kind words. Thank you. We now move on to agenda number 8, election of the deputy mayor. I now ask for nominations for the office of deputy mayor for the ensuing year. Do we have a proposer?
Yes, Your Worship.
That's being proposed by Councillor Kevin Lloydell. And would you like to say a few words?
Yes, Your Worship. Firstly, congratulations on your appointment to my post of mayor. Your Worship, I have great pleasure in proposing Councillor Rosemary Adams as the deputy mayor for the coming year. I've known Rosemary for over 25 years as a colleague and a friend. During that time, I've found Rosemary a strong, honest and direct person. She has always been supportive of her husband, Dick Adams, during his time as a councillor for this borough. And this will make her an ideal deputy mayor for Councillor Lily Corfin during her year as mayor. Any duty that Rosemary is asked to take on, I know that she will carry out to the best of her ability. I therefore have no hesitation in nominating Councillor Rosemary Adams as Deputy Mayor for this year. Thank you very much, Your Worship.
Thank you, Councillor Lloydell. We have a seconder who I believe is Councillor Helen Lloydell.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship, and congratulations on your appointment at long last
Thank you.
to Mayor of Oadby and Wigston, and I hope you have a thoroughly enjoyable time, and don't work yourself too hard into the ground. It takes a lot of hard work and is very exhausting throughout the year, but I wish you all the best.
Thank you.
I'm delighted to be able to second the nomination for Councillor Rosemary Adams as Deputy Mayor for the coming year. As Councillor Kevin Lloyd has already stated, we've both known Rosemary for many years, and during that time she's proved herself as a dedicated, hard worker, always ready to help and support others. There have been many occasions over the years when we've asked for Rosemary's help, and she's always been there, ready and willing. I'm quite certain that Her Worship Councillor Lily Kaufman will be able to rely on her, Rosemary Adams' support throughout the rest of this year. Rosemary will make an excellent Deputy Mayor, and I am very proud to be able to second this nomination. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you, Councillor Helen Lloydell. So been proposed by Councillor Kevin Lloydell, seconded by Councillor Helen Lloydell. If there are any objections, please raise your hand. No, I cannot see any objections. I now call upon Councillor Rosemary Adams to read and sign the Declaration of Acceptance of Office.
I, Rosemary Adams, having been elected to the office of Deputy Mayor of the Oadby and Wigston Borough Council, declare that I take that office upon myself and will duly and faithfully fulfil the duties of it according to the best of my judgment and ability. I undertake to observe the code as to the conduct which is expected of members of the Oadby and Wigston Borough Council, dated the 4th of May 2021. Signed the declaration.
Would you like to go and put your chain on now?
Oh, yes. That.
Lovely.
Thank you.
Say a few words, Councillor.
Yes, I would. I'm delighted to be elected as Deputy Mayor for the coming year. And unfortunately, due to his deterioration in his health, my husband feels he is unable to be my consort this year. And I'm sure you will all appreciate his reasoning. I'd like to thank the retiring Deputy Mayor, Lily, for all her hard work while she was Deputy, and for the help and advice that she has given to me in the last few weeks. It is truly appreciated. And thank you to Councillors Kevin and Helen Lloydell for proposing me and seconding me. And after what you've said about me, I hope I don't let you down. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Adams.
Thank you.
I'm going to quickly say I couldn't wish for anybody nicer and better to have as my Deputy Mayor.
Thank you.
We now move on to agenda number 9, appointment of office holders, council bodies and membership. I believe Mr. Gill, you are going to read the report.
Thank you, Your Worship. The purpose of the report is to appoint the office holders and committees, subcommittees, boards, panels, forums and working groups of the council for the municipal year 2021 to 2022. The current political balance of the council and the proportionality arrangements as a result in terms of minimum eligible member representation and the allocation of seats on council bodies is reflected in the number of appointments to be made by political groups. The recommendations are that council notes the current political balance and that the nominated appointments as set out in the Appendix 3 to the report are approved. In respect of Appendix 3, we have 2 matters that require addressing by the council. If you bear with me as I scroll down the page, Your Worships. In terms of the nominations to the Oadby Residents Forum, we have 2 members that have been nominated for 1 position. So we have Councillor Joshi, who has been nominated, and Councillor Naveed Alam, who's also been nominated, which is a matter for this council to resolve. In addition, in terms of the outside groups, there are a number of vacancies which require nominations in terms of the local government association, East Midlands Council, etc. And if we can find the appropriate page, which is in front of you. So the council needs to have nominations for the local government association, East Midlands Council, the Leicestershire and Rutland Police and Crime Panel, Oadby and Wixton Environmental Forum, and the Plastic Free Oadby Steering Group. In addition, we already have a nomination from the Conservative grouping for the Leicestershire Safer Communities Strategy Board, and there is no nomination from the Liberal Democrat group. So it's a matter as to whether members wish to, or the Liberal Democrat members wish to make a nomination on that. If there is a nomination, then in terms of that position and the position of the Oadby Forum, it would be a matter of taking the matter to a vote in order to determine which of the two nominees is to be appointed. That's the content of the report, Your Worship, unless anybody's got any questions.
Thank you, Your Worship. I have Councillor Kevin Lloydell first.
Yes, thank you very much. Just coming back to that slide with the Safer Strategy Board at County Hall, I'm surprised it's there because that's usually taken up by the chair of the Community Safety Partnership, as all the other districts nominate their chairs to go to actually attend that meeting. So I'm not quite sure whether I can nominate myself, but that's up to you. And the Police and Crime Panel, again, that's normally the Community Safety Partnership chairs, as indeed all the authorities have their chairs at those meetings to hold the Police and Crime Panel to account. So I'm not quite sure where that's come from when it was already nominated prior to all of this. So I'm quite a bit confused as to why it's on there. So thank you.
If I can just make a comment on that, Your Worship. There's no reason why Councillor Lloydell can't nominate themselves for both of those positions, provided that he gets a seconder. And in terms of them being included in this list, whilst it may be custom and practice for the chair of the CSP, for example, to be appointed to the Police and Crime Panel, there's nothing in the Constitution which says that's a foregone conclusion, and that's why it's been included. May I suggest, Your Worship, that we deal with them in order that we have them on that list, if that list could go back on the screen, so that we can see what nominations that we've got, and then see what votes, if necessary, need to be taken. So the first one is a local government association. So we're looking for nominees for that and any seconders.
Your Worship, for clarity, if I may.
Yeah, if we can take nominees.
Your Worship, if I may. The nominations for the outside bodies are quite clear. They are myself for Local Government Association and the East Midlands Council.
Correct.
Councillor Lloydell is absolutely correct in the Safer Community Strategy Board should be the chairman of the Community Safety Partnership, which is Councillor Lloydell. In future, can we actually assume, and in fact, can we link Community Safety Partnership and that board as being one? So if you are elected to Community Safety Partnership, you automatically go on the strategy board. Leicestershire and Rutland Police and Crime Panel, it doesn't automatically follow that Community Safety Partnership chair goes on that, because at one point I sat on it for quite some time. However, Councillor Lloydell has sat on it since then, and I've moved that. Oadby and Wixton Environmental Forum and the Plastic Free Oadby Steering Group are both David Carter. I'm quite prepared that we go to a vote. However, I would suggest that Councillor Joshi may wish to withdraw her nomination based on the fact that the political balance does not go in her favour. Thank you.
Councillor Joshi.
If that's the case, then that's how it is, I guess. I don't see the reason that just because you're on the community, what was the actual thing? I can't remember.
The issue is the community safety partnership. Sorry.
Yeah, the community safety partnership.
Sorry,
Because that's not really.
If I may
Sorry.
answer, the community safety partnership and the strategic board are effectively, one is our local community safety partnership, and the Leicester and Leicestershire equivalent is the community safety strategy board, in which case you do work at one, your work then goes up to the other. Therefore, it simply makes sense that the two are carried out by the same individual.
Okay. The only reason I put my name there was because I was asked to, nominate myself or nominate somebody. And from my perspective, if we're looking at diversity and inclusion, that would be the other reason that I would put myself on that. But if it means that I'm not able to, then fair enough.
So can you confirm then, please, Councillor Joshi, that you're withdrawing your nomination?
Is that what I have to do? I mean, because I thought you said that there's nothing in the Constitution to say that just because you're on that committee, you have to be on this one. Is that right? I mean, I don't think I'll get
That's
the vote.
correct, but
I'm outnumbered. But
Councillor Boyce has given his view on the matter, which is, I agree, is that the CSP partnership feeds into the strategy board at the county level. It's entirely a matter for you. If you wish the matter to go to a vote, then that's fine. I have no problem with that. But if you would prefer not to, then you can withdraw your nomination. That's entirely a matter
I
for you,
think it's going to be a
Joshi.
foregone conclusion, to be fair, if we go to a vote anyway. So I don't see the point of it and wasting everybody's time. I'm just simply my reason for being on that was because I think it needs to be inclusive and not exclusive. And that at the moment looks very exclusive. So yes, I will withdraw my application or my nomination.
Thank you, Councillor Joshi. If you have no objections, Your Worship, then the next issue that we have to resolve is the question of OP Residence Forum, where again we have two nominees for one position. So we have Councillor Allen, who has been nominated by the Liberal Democrats, and Councillor Joshi, who has been nominated by the Conservatives. So in the event that there is no withdrawal of this nomination, then that would have to go to a vote as well.
Well, yes,
So,
if we have to go for a vote, it's up to Councillor Joshi how she feels, what she wants to do.
No, I'll stay, please. I'll go to the vote if we have to.
Yeah, okay.
thank you. In that case, Ms. Byrne, can you do the vote, please?
Councillor Rosemary Adams.
Sorry, Your Worship. Point of order. For clarity, I've moved the list. It should be seconded before we vote.
I'll second it.
Councillor Boyce, can you just clarify, have you moved the nomination in respect of the conflict between the OB residents or as a composite motion with the recommendation A and B?
Well, I've moved the motion and the list. So
if I can just interject, Councillor Boyce, the problem is with the list as it stands, we have a conflict. So what we need to do is resolve the conflict, and the way to resolve the conflict is by having a vote on the two nominees. At that point, when we have a result of that vote, you will then be in a position to move the list, because we will know which person is going to take up the post of chair of the Residence Forum in Oadby. As it stands at the moment, if the list is moved, we still have two people.
I am merely a politician. I will bow to your superior judgment and knowledge.
Thank you. So if we can go back and what you're voting on, members, is whether the chair should be Councillor Allen or Councillor Joshi. So if Ms. Byrne calls out the names, if you can answer either Councillor Allen or Councillor Joshi to the question.
Councillor Adams.
Councillor Allen.
Councillor Allen.
Councillor Allen.
Councillor Bentley.
Councillor Allen.
Councillor Bolter.
Councillor Allen.
Councillor Boyce.
Councillor Allen.
Councillor Broadley. Sorry, Councillor Frank Broadley.
Councillor Allen.
Councillor Linda Broadley.
Councillor Allen.
Councillor David Carter.
Councillor Allen.
Councillor Latif Dar.
Councillor Allen.
Councillor Linda Eaton.
Councillor Allen.
Councillor Gamble.
Councillor Allen.
Councillor Gattaraya.
Councillor Allen.
Councillor Hack.
Councillor Allen.
Councillor Joshi.
Councillor Joshi.
Councillor Geoffrey Kaufman.
Councillor Allen.
Councillor Lily Kaufman.
Councillor Allen.
Councillor Core.
Councillor Allen.
Councillor Kozlowski.
Councillor Allen.
Councillor David Lloydell.
Councillor Allen.
Councillor Helen Lloydell.
Councillor Allen.
Councillor Kevin Lloydell.
Councillor Allen.
Councillor Richard Morris.
Councillor Allen.
Councillor Sharon Morris.
Councillor Allen.
Councillor Ridley.
Could you just repeat that for us again, Councillor Ridley?
Councillor Allen.
Thank you. Sorry, Miss Byrne.
That's 23 for Councillor Allen and 1 for Councillor Joshi.
Thank you, Your Worship. If I may now come back in with your agreement. So the position is now that the conflict in the list has been resolved, and that Councillor Allen is the nominee for OB Residence Forum. Now we can go back to Councillor Boyce if Councillor Boyce is still minded to move the report with the amended list and then seek a seconder thereafter.
I'm more than happy to reinstate the list as written with the posts as clarified, and I would suggest we go to a vote. However, Councillor Joshi did suggest that there was some issue of inclusivity. Maybe she would consider becoming the next deputy mayor. I would leave that on the table.
Thank you, Your Worship.
So if we go back to you, Your Worship.
Yeah, do we have a
Sorry, if we go back to you, Your Worship, we require a seconder.
seconder?
I'll second that, Your Worship.
Thank you, Councillor Morris, Sharon Morris. So it has been moved by Councillor John Boyce and seconded by Councillor Sharon Morris that motion has been approved. So we go.
Sorry, Your Worship.
Sorry.
You either need a vote or you need affirmation of the meeting to confirm it's been approved. Merely moving in second is not sufficient. So, and given that there was a conflict on it, you may feel it appropriate to go to a recorded type vote.
We want to, okay, we can go to a recorded type vote. At least that'll confirm everything. That's fine.
Thank you, Your Worship.
Oh, sorry. Councillor Adams.
What's the option? Sorry.
For, against or abstain.
Right, 4. Sorry.
Councillor Allen.
4.
Councillor Bentley.
4.
Councillor Bolter.
4.
Councillor Boyce.
4.
Councillor Frank Broadley.
4.
Councillor Linda Broadley.
4.
Councillor David Carter.
4.
Councillor Dar.
4.
Councillor Eaton.
4.
Councillor Gamble.
4.
Councillor Gataraya.
Sustain. Sustain.
Thank you. Councillor Hack.
For.
Councillor Joshi.
Against.
Councillor Jeffrey Kaufman.
For.
Councillor Lily Kaufman.
For.
Councillor Core.
For.
Councillor Kozlowski.
For.
Councillor David Lloydell.
For.
Councillor Helen Lloydell.
For.
Oh, sorry, that was Helen Lloydell.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
I don't mind, whichever way round. For.
Councillor Kevin Lloydell.
For.
Councillor Richard Morris.
For.
Councillor Sharon Morris.
For.
And Councillor Ridley.
For.
So that's 22 for, 1 against and 1 abstain.
So the motion has now been carried. Are we okay to go to agenda item 10 now? Yes.
Thank you, Your Worship.
Okay. Appointment of independent persons. Can I please remind all members that the appendix for this report is confidential, so please do not show this appendix to the camera. The report will be given by Mr. Gill. If there are any questions, this has to be in a certain way because of the confidentiality. So we'll get Mr. Gill to read the report and then we will see if there actually are any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship. The purpose of the report is to appoint a panel of independent persons for the purposes of the Localism Act 2011 and the Local Authority Standing Orders England Amendment Regulations 2015. In January 2021, the District and Borough Monitoring Officers agreed to a joint recruitment exercise to select new independent persons. And because it was felt that this approach had secured a selection of good quality candidates in the past and would provide resilience by continuing the pool arrangement. The background is that on the 26th of June 2012, Council considered a report which detailed the changes to the role of the independent person, and they appointed a number of independent persons at that time. Since then, we've remained in the pool with the 7 of the Leicestershire District and Borough Councils, and the appointment to the pool has been via a joint recruitment exercise led by a working group comprising 3 monitoring officers, of which I was one. Appointments were made to the pool in 2012 and 2016, and the terms of office of each IP were extended in 2020 to enable the councils to synchronise their respective terms of office and due to a pause in the recruitment because of the COVID pandemic. If you look at section 2 of the report, it sets out the way in which the recruitment process was conducted, and as a result of that, we had a good number of candidates who applied to be the IPs, and you will see there that there are 6 persons named. The confidential appendix sets out a brief resume of each of those candidates. The IPs have a role in terms of the code of conduct, and they are engaged when monitoring officers have a complaint, and they need to take the advice of the independent person as to how they should deal with it. Independent persons are also available for members who have been complained about to take advice from, hence the reason that we have a pool to ensure that there's no conflict of interest between an IP who is advising a monitoring officer and an IP who is advising a member. In addition, there were changes in 2015 concerning the dismissal of statutory officers. So in the event that a council is seeking to dismiss the chief executive as head of paid service, the monitoring officer or the section 151 officer, then there has to be a panel which must include at least 2 independent persons. And the independent persons that are appointed for the code also act as independent persons for the purposes of the standing order regulations. So the recommendation is that the 6 persons listed at 2.2 of the report are appointed as independent persons for a 4-year period until May 2025. I'm happy to take any questions if members have got any, Your Worship.
I have 2 hands raised, Your Worship. Councillor Boyce first.
Thank you, Your Worship. For simplicity, I move.
Thank you, Councillor Boyce.
Councillor Joshi, Your Worship.
Just a quick question. Again, I'm going back to my inclusive diversity issues here because it's all men, which shouldn't go against it. How many candidates did we actually have? And how many of those included different genders, different multicultural backgrounds? Do we have that? And can I ask that question?
You certainly can ask that question, Councillor Joshi. The recruitment process included all of the 7 boroughs, so the role was advertised across the whole of the county by all of the district and borough councils, and also there was some involvement with the county council. We had about 9 or 10 applications, of which none were female and none were of a BAME background. So we made every effort to be inclusive. We made every effort to encourage different genders, but the bottom line is that we could only deal with those applicants that we received.
Okay, I think as council, when we formed properly, I think we need to address that going forward at some stage, and I'm happy to take that on. Okay, thank you.
Councillor Shine Morris, Your Worship.
Thank you, Your Worship. It was just to second the leader's motion.
Councillor Bill Bolter, Your Worship.
It's okay, Shane's going to second it.
Sorry, Bill.
Councillor Dean Gamble, Your Worship.
Your Worship, I have to say I totally agree with Councillor Joshi. I think it's pretty appalling that we have 5 white Anglo-Saxon men as independent people. They are not representing the people of Oban Wigston in the fact that we are a multicultural society in Oban Wigston. I know the other councils probably aren't, but I think we should in the future somehow let people from different ethnic minorities and at least some women on the independent persons panel. I will not support this. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any more hands up?
No further hands raised, Your Worship.
Thank you.
Sorry, Your Worship. Councillor Helen Noidle has just popped her hand up.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. I'm sorry to interrupt in this discussion, but did I understand from our legal advisor, Mr. Gill, that this was something that went out across the whole of the county, that all of the districts were involved and the county council were involved? Now, if I am right and he did say this, then it was not down to Oadby and Wigston to choose those candidates. It was done across the whole of the borough. So perhaps this is something that when whatever the elections are taking place on Thursday are resolved, it is taken up as a county council issue so that this can be resolved to everybody's satisfaction. It's not something that Oadby and Wigston decided on its own. I think I'm right in saying that, Mr. Gill.
If you have no objections, Your Worship. Yes, that's correct, Councillor Noidle. I say all of the districts and boroughs, so that's Blaby, Hinckley, Harborough, Oadby, Melton, Charnwood and North West Leicestershire were involved in this process. The adverts were published in the press. The adverts were published on all of the media platforms and in the appropriate magazines. And it's just unfortunate that we didn't have any female applicants and we didn't have any BAME applicants. We did push as best we could, but the bottom line is we can only deal with what we have. We have a duty in law to appoint independent persons. The term of office of the current IPs has ended, and we must appoint them going forward. We can certainly look at it during the next recruitment process, and I'm happy for when that occurs in 2025 to involve members, and councillors to try and assist us in getting a wider pool of people.
I have two remaining hands, Your Worship. First, Councillor Geoffrey Kaufman, and then Councillor Priti Joshi.
Thank you, Your Worship. My problem is, I understand all the work the officers throughout the county have done, but they're not successful in achieving what I find incredible. I'm not blaming anyone, but I don't think we should be accepting this tonight for 5 years. I'm of two minds whether to move that we refer it back so that it can go back to the officer working group and have another try, or alternatively, and I'm sure I'll get some legal advice to tell me whether it possibly can be done, to approve it for 1 year and give everybody a year to think again. I don't know what the legislation says on that, but I'm appalled at what I've seen. It's a COVID year, it's a strange year, it's a funny year, and it's not a particularly good year to appoint them. But I'm not happy to appoint this group, make up of this group for a full 5-year term. And I would suggest we go back and discuss it with other authorities. Thank you.
If I can respond back to that, Your Worship. The fact of the matter is, Councillor Kaufman, we have to appoint tonight because we are required by law to have independent persons. The reason why they've been appointed to 2025 is to tie in with the municipal election cycle. There is nothing to prevent us from going out again and appointing additional members for the borough if that is what members feel is appropriate. So we could appoint tonight for a period of 4 years. We could then go out again. We could utilise the expertise of members that is being offered, and if, as a result of a further recruitment exercise, we are in a position to appoint additional independent persons, then we can do so, and then we can tie any additional appointments in with the municipal cycle. The difficulty is that if we don't tie everything in together, it gets out of sync, and it makes it very difficult to organise the ongoing recruitment process. So my advice would be, if you appoint tonight from the list that we have, because we do need to have them, and if you are instructing me to do a further additional recruitment exercise to try and expand the pool in terms of gender and ethnicity, then I'm more than happy to do that.
Well, I, Your Worship, would like to move that suggestion because the particular circumstances and the great makeup of Oadby and Wigston make it important, and I actually thank Councillor Joshi for that, bringing that to our attention. And I think we all agree with that. And I think what we should be doing is taking up your suggestion. So I would like to move that we ask you to go and recruit some additional independent persons. I don't know whether they can only act in the borough, but perhaps the other councillors may agree with, we also have a good idea. But we ought to do that. Interestingly enough, it was councillors of all political persuasion that agreed to this. Perhaps it's men doing this, I don't know. But yeah, I'd like to move that, please. I don't know.
We'll second it.
We'll second it.
So the composite motion on the table then is that the report for this evening is approved with
I'm sorry, I can't hear.
Requirement that I understand.
You froze, Mr. Gill.
Froze.
Whilst Mr. Gill reconnects, I believe that the composite motion on the table now is that the appointments are made as the recommendations, and then Mr. Gill is instructed to go out to appoint further independent persons, or an exercise to seek further independent persons, which then can be added at a later date. Are you back with us, Mr. Gill? Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct, Mr. Ball.
Are the movers and seconders of the original motion happy for those to be taken as a composite?
Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, I'm happy for that to happen. However, I would make the point, the word that we need to maintain is the word independent. If members are involved too much in either suggesting or even worse, choosing, the word independent becomes null and void. I'd rather have 6 absolutely independent individuals than a representative sample, which is basically made up of people who are friends of friends of friends. I think that's really dangerous. But beyond that, I'm happy that Mr. Gill goes away, frankly should talk to the other districts, and hopefully across the county achieve a better balance. I do accept that.
Your Worship, I agree with Councillor Boyce. I have no problem with the motion going forward.
Thank you.
Your Worship, I've got two hands remaining.
Okay.
Councillor Joshi.
I don't think we're suggesting that we go and choose our friends, etc., Councillor Boyce. That's not the idea. The idea is that it's made more prominent that this post is for anybody from any community, from any gender, etc. And whilst we are as a council choosing these independent people, it doesn't mean that just county are going to give us these guys and we've got to go ahead with it. We have a choice, surely, and a challenge to that. And our challenge really is we live in a multicultural community. Oadby Wigstone Borough Council and the borough itself is multicultural. I find it totally abysmal that we've not been able to, get anybody different to join the independent group. And also to that, it's just ludicrous. And again, I've seen that across some of the other councils. There's a lot of men and hardly any women of any colour, ethnicities, even English women. So I won't be voting for this. I will vote against, certainly.
Thank you, Your Worship. I've got one more hand raised, Councillor Bill Bolter, and if you're minded to do so, you may proceed to the vote.
I quite happy to go ahead as it is now. I think we should appoint these people this evening, and Mr. Gill can find somebody else, bring them back to a future meeting. But I think it was talk to county about it as well, because it was run by county. Wearing another hat, I did see these people before in another place. So yes, the process was quite long, quite arduous, and not many people applied for it. So we need to move forward.
Thank you. Your Worship, if you're minded,
Your
you
Worship,
can
can I
go.
just make one comment? Sorry, can I just make one comment, Your Worship? For the avoidance of doubt, this process was not run by county. This process was run by me, the MO from Melton and the MO from North West Leicestershire. The county were involved in the sense that they were looking to appoint as well, and they were willing to accept what the other districts and boroughs agreed. So it was myself and 2 MOs not connected with county.
Thank you. I'm minded to go on to move this now, but can I just say maybe there is a blip in the recruitment, and as Mr. Gill says, that hopefully he will address this if we can recruit extra people in the right way. Maybe the recruitment needs adjusting a bit, but we'll go ahead and move this by Councillor Boyce, and it was seconded by Sharon Morris. And Is it a recorded vote now?
Yeah, Your Worship, just before we go further, we now have two further hands. We've got Councillor Kaufman, who's got his hand up, but he's just disappeared from the screen. And we've got Councillor Kevin Lloydall with his hand raised as well, Your Worship.
Okay. I don't know which order they were in, but
Councillor Kaufman first, Your Worship.
Councillor Kaufman.
Justice, I'm rather disappointed if I heard correctly that Councillor Joshi is proposing to vote against this amended motion, because if I misheard, I apologise. But I
Sorry,
think this...
no, Councillor Kaufman, it wasn't against this motion, the original motion. I was, that's what I'm voting against, but I'm voting with the amended motion.
Okay, misunderstanding. Thank you.
No, that's okay.
Councillor Lloydall, Kevin Lloydall, Your Worship.
Yeah, thank you. It's just to clarify the point, is that we're talking about 6 independent members here just because they're men. I'd hate to think that because they are men and they've bothered and taken the trouble to apply to become independent members and have gone through the due process and they've been selected on their ability, that we're not saying their ability is not any good anymore because they have the wrong agenda or whatever, that we should now replace them with somebody else or add to it because of some prejudices that we think we've got. I think the responsibility is not with those 6 members, independent members. The responsibility is with the people out there who haven't taken the trouble to apply. So I don't want it to go down and those 6 members here feel that they're being, because of what they are and who they are, that we all of a sudden we're saying we're going to, they're not representative of anybody. They are representative. They're representative of the people that have bothered to and put themselves forward. So let's put it in perspective. I don't mind voting for what was just suggested, but at the moment we've talked about them as being white male Caucasians and everything else. What's the problem with that? There isn't one. It's only in people's mind that might be a problem. But I don't want them to go away thinking that we're against them, because we're not. I think that's important. But let's get on with the vote, and then I'll vote for it. But let's not get it out of proportion, please.
Councillor Claire Kozlowski, Your Worship.
Yes, can I just make a point as well? If we're asking Mr Gill to go out again to recruit further people, is that going to be excluding white British males or not? Because it might be that he comes back and if they're the only people that are going to apply, we might just have more white British men, if that makes sense.
Your Worship, I think that has now exhausted the debate on this matter, and I would suggest that you move that to the vote.
I agree with you. I agree. Yes, we'll go to the recorded vote now.
Can Mr Gill please clarify the position as Councillor Gamble left the debate for 30 seconds and his entitlement to vote?
My advice has been given previously on this matter, and it has consistently been that where a member leaves the meeting and has not had full access to the whole debate, then they should not vote. At the end of the day, it's a matter for that member to determine whether or not he wishes to vote, and if he does, in circumstances where there might be a challenge, then that member may lose their indemnity against any costs. So that's my position. It's entirely a matter now for that member.
Thank you.
Although I wasn't on screen, I was fully listening to the debate, and I shall vote on this issue.
Thank you.
Can I just clarify what, can you clarify what we're actually voting for?
So we're voting for the recommendation that's set out on the agenda, which is appointment of those 6 persons. And it was moved that there be a further recruitment process by myself to try and identify additional members of a different gender and ethnicity.
Thank
you.
Councillor Adams.
4.
Councillor Allen.
4.
Councillor Bentley.
Abstain.
Councillor Bolter.
4.
Councillor Boyce.
4.
Councillor Frank Broadley.
4.
Councillor Linda Broadley.
Abstain.
Councillor David Carter.
4.
Councillor Dar.
4.
Councillor Eaton.
4.
Councillor Gamble.
4.
Councillor Gattaraya.
Against.
Councillor Hack.
4.
Councillor Joshi.
Against.
Councillor Geoffrey Kaufman.
4.
Councillor Lily Kaufman.
4.
Councillor Core.
4.
Councillor Kozlowski.
Abstain.
Councillor David Lloydell.
4.
Councillor Helen Lloydell.
4.
Councillor Kevin Lloydell.
I'll abstain.
Councillor Richard Morris.
4.
Councillor Sharon Morris. Sorry, Councillor Morris, could you say that again? You were just on mute. Yours.
Sorry, it keeps muting itself. 4.
Thank you. Councillor Ridley.
4.
That's 18 for, 2 against and 4 abstain.
Thank you, Emily. Right, moving forward, agenda item 11, schedule of council and allied meetings. Mr. Gill, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. The report seeks approval from Council for the schedule of council and allied meetings for the municipal year 2021-22. The schedule has been prepared following consultation with the leader of the council and the senior leadership team, subject to the below mentioned guidelines as set out in paragraph 3.2 of the report. Standard report, members. It just sets out the timetable for the council's meetings over the next 12 months. I don't propose to go through it into any great detail unless any members have got any questions.
No hands raised. Oh, sorry, Your Worship. Councillor John Boyce.
Thank you, Your Worship. Putting it simply, I move this report. Can I thank the officers for their efforts in bringing this together? It's a very strange report where we were always looking over our shoulder at the issues of remote meetings. There will still be remote issues to be dealt with, not least of all, the first question I asked after the legal ruling was what constitutes the meeting. What is clear is we've already published the view on that, which meetings will have to take place physically, which issues and meetings we can continue remotely. My guess would be even those meetings will probably have to consider becoming face-to-face in the autumn. But at this moment in time, I think this is the best diary we can achieve, and I'm happy to move it. Thank you.
Councillor Sharon Morris, yeah, Your Worship.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm happy to second.
Thank you. So this has been moved by Councillor Boyce, seconded by Councillor Sharon Morris. Can we now have a recorded style vote?
Councillor Adams.
Sorry, Your
Worship.
We've never voted on this before.
Oh, says in my instructions.
Fair enough.
4. Approved.
Thank you. Councillor Allen.
4.
Councillor Bentley,
For.
Councillor Bolter,
For.
Councillor Boyce,
For.
Councillor Broadley, Frank
For.
Broadley, sorry,
For.
Councillor Linda Broadley,
For.
Councillor Carter,
For.
Councillor Dar,
For.
Councillor Eaton,
For.
Councillor Gamble,
For.
Councillor Gataraya,
Sustain.
What's she doing?
Councillor Hack,
Sorry, Miss Byrne, could I just remind members
For.
that they must remain muted if they are not voting? Thank you.
thank you. Councillor Hack, sorry, could you just repeat that, please?
For.
Thank you. Councillor Joshi,
For.
Councillor Jeffrey Kaufman,
For.
Councillor Lily Kaufman,
For.
Councillor Core,
For.
Councillor Kozlowski,
For.
Councillor David Lloydell,
For.
Councillor Helen Lloydell,
Am I unmuted now?
yes,
Right, 4.
thank you. Councillor Kevin Lloydell,
For.
Councillor Richard Morris,
For.
Councillor Sharon Morris,
For.
and Councillor Ridley.
For.
That's 23 for and 1 abstain.
Thank you, Emily. Agenda 12, the last bit in the agenda. It's newly elected mayor's announcements. Obviously, at the moment, I do not have many announcements to make, but I'd just like to tell you that my first appointment that's come in is to open a newly refurbished funeral parlour, which of course I'm delighted to do, but I hope it's not a bad omen. We'll wait and see. And just to say that this year is going to be a floral year. You've got a lily and you've got a rosy. So I hope that we will grow and flourish together. Finally, thank you to everyone who's participated and Zoomed in. I cannot see the guests or the family who have Zoomed in, but I'm sure they're supporting me and encouraging me, and I can really feel their warmth. I'm sure they're still there. I think I've covered everything. Am I correct, Mr. Gill?
You have, Your Worship.
Thank you. So I now declare this meeting closed and I bid you all good night.